but the real execution layer of the partner model isn't the partner, it's the seller and the engineering team below. So why wouldn't we move our metrics and move our production down to sellers?
Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm joined by Craig Booth, the founder and principal of Channel Force, and one of the more opinionated voices in partnered led revenue. He's a two-time author. He's spent over 30 years running channel and enterprise sales at places like Juniper and Cloud Harmonics. And he has built his methodology called structured performance partnering that basically argues the entire channel industry has been measuring the wrong thing for 40 years. And his methodology is so structured and so clear that I think it's really going to be insightful. On this podcast, we focus on how B2B leaders are generating revenue through AI, thought leadership, and ultimately building more robust go-to-market systems. So I think conversation for today is going to be very interesting. Craig, it's great to have you.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much, Mir. It's nice to meet you. I always appreciate being on podcasts, meeting fine young men like yourself, and I love great conversations. The build up was a little interesting for sure, so I always appreciate that. And it is kind of an interesting world that we're in with um, that was kind of a strong statement that we're measuring the wrong things. But I'm sure we will talk about that as we get going into this.
Yeah. So let me pinpoint what prompted me to say that is your quote of partnering was never a program problem. It's always been a sales execution problem. So can you unpack that for us, for somebody who runs a partner program right now and thinks it's going all fine, but they really haven't looked that deep?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So one of the things that I analogy I always use is every sales organization, they're in a 100-meter sprint, and that 100-meter sprint is from, pipelining the business all the way through to the PO. And if you think about what we do in partnering today, we have in that 100-meter sprint on the partnering equation, we have the vendor, we have the partner at the 50-meter mark, and we have the customer and the PO at the end of the 100-meter mark. And we do a really good job in partnering of teaching people to sprint 50 meters. And what I mean by that is we enable people to our products, and we enable partners to our um, compliance to our partner program. So we spend a lot of time and energy focusing on the relationship between the vendor and the partner. From the partner to the economic buyer, it's totally opportunistic. It's wild, wild west. We don't teach the partner seller how to actually sell. We don't equip them with a strategy. We don't equip them with an execution model. So we leave it to chance the entire time. And if you know uh, how we get around that is we often run a co-sell model where we have the vendor seller and the partner aligned on the deal, but the vendor seller is doing most of the selling. So we teach people to run 50 meters, but what we really need to do is teach them how to run 100 meters, even if we're in a co-sell environment. So that's what I mean by we're kind of doing things in the wrong way. And the other thing that I would say is we're measuring the wrong things. Like the production unit of the channel for the traditional partnering model is the partner. So we measure partner revenue, we measure, deal registrations at the partner level. Like everything is measured at the partner level, but the real execution layer of the partner model isn't the partner, it's the seller and the engineering team below. So why wouldn't we move our metrics and move our production down to sellers? And why would we measure sellers? Like the real value of your partner program isn't how many partners you have, it's how many active sellers you're producing in the partner program. So these are some of the things where I talk about like, hey, I feel like we've been measuring and doing the wrong things because we end up with really highly bloated partner ecosystems that scale expense without scaling performance. And that's the challenge. And we can't live like that today with AI and with profitable, efficient growth being the measure of success.
Hmm.
So,
I like the analogy of you're focused only on the first half of the race, but crossing the finish line of actually setting up the system to sell direct to the end client is what you need to actually facilitate the entire process so that the entire process actually leads to new revenue as opposed to measuring the wrong thing of just setting up the partnership, but how does that actually lead to mutual benefit and closed revenue for the partner and for yourself? I saw that you've been doing this for a long time, and that you'd grown these partnership ecosystems from the inside, like turning around the Verizon channel. I saw that it was declining for 8 years, and then you were able to turn that around. What did you see from the inside working and scaling these systems that made you understand like the whole entire model is broken and fundamentally an approach was necessary?
Yeah, I need to give a little backdrop to that comment. So when I was over at Juniper Networks, I was there for two times. I spent 6 years with Juniper Networks back in the you know mid 2000s, like 2006 to 2011 or whatever it was. And that team, we grew from 5 million to 111 million in 5 years. And then I ended up leaving, going to a couple of other companies, doing other things, and I got recruited back. And they hadn't made their number from the point that I had left. I came back and started implementing the things that we were doing first time around, and we ended up blowing our numbers out. So what is that? What's kind of the secret sauce? And to sort of answer your question, we all get caught up in chasing short-term deals, and that's the way that the focus of most companies are. We need quarterly revenue, and we have to drive quarterly revenue, and everything's about this quarter. It doesn't matter about next quarter, what have you. So that's the first thing that you've got to kind of focus on. You got to figure out how to you know, find the short-term opportunities, but you've got to plan and build systems that are going to continually produce revenues. And the system that we try to put in place, going back to our previous comment, is it's scaling active sellers. The job of my team isn't to scale the number of partnerships that we have, although that's part of it, but the real job of the partner revenue architect or the partner account manager um, is to scale active sellers quarter over quarter. So what is an active seller? An active seller is a partner sales rep that is executing a joint sales or solution strategy with a defined set of accounts. And so, we can literally turn a seller into a production unit where we can measure the number of account engagements that we have, build an engagement rate. So how many meetings do I need, or how many outreaches do I need to produce a meeting? And then how many of those meetings actually transition to a quoted opportunity? And then what's the average deal size and the close rate? So we can measure all of that, and we could build a production unit across the entire ecosystem that says, for every active seller that I add, it's $13,000, all right, in 6 months. And so I can start to run, or it might be 20 or 50 or 100,000, whatever it is, but you can start to predict revenue by scaling active sellers. So I know there's a lot that I just threw out there, but this is what sort of drives the performance is really getting into the activities and measuring the things that matter are what's going to produce the revenue in the back end. So a lot of what we do is just way too far removed from actual revenue production. So what I try and do is go in and say, where are we breaking down? What are the issues? Um, you know, with the team, with the market, with the client, and then let's build a structured strategy execution framework, and then let's enable to that framework, and then let's measure to that framework, and then let's AI optimize. So that's typically what I come in and do to help deliver better results.
Maybe it would be helpful if you gave us like a real example. Like say a CRO comes to you, their partner revenue is flat. They've got 200 partners, but they don't know which ones actually matter. Like what are the first things that you actually change? And what does it look like as far as like the progression of step by step, maybe something that a CRO who's listening to this can actually think through of like where to start because it can feel overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, that's a really insightful question here. So the first thing we always do, there's kind of a 5 phase, planning stage or planning framework that I put in place. The first thing you always do is you assess. And so you have to assess um, the team. You have to assess your solution strength. You have to assess the partner ecosystem and their strength. You have the right partners, all of those type of things. And I have solution strength scores. I have partner impact scores. Um, I'm also looking at the market opportunity for the solution that we're selling. How crowded is the market? Are we a strong solution, a favorable solution, a competitive solution, or a weak solution in that market? All those have different strategies you got to put in place. So you build the assessment around understanding your solution, your partners, the market, and your reward structure. Well, that leads to strategies. So each one of those assessments is going to have a different strategy associated with it based on the strength. So we're going to start building our strategies, and then that strategy leads to empowerment. How do I take this strategy now and resource this strategy with sales playbooks, with messaging, with incentive structures? So you got to build all that out next, and then that leads to enablement. Now, how do I take this over to the partner community and look at the type of partners I have: sell to, sell through, sell with, and how do I customize the strategy for each one of those go-to-market motions? And then how do I enable the team to that? How do I build a coverage model on a set of accounts we want to go and attack and target? All right. And then how do I build an execution framework at the seller level for the seller to go and execute that I can capture again? So that's essentially the 5, 6 step process that I take all clients through that produces results at the end. And it's all data driven.
Yeah, I think most people are kind of caught in the middle. They haven't done enough time really planning and assessing, which nowadays, especially with AI helping with execution, I think it's over 80%, maybe 90% of the work is really the planning phase, assessment, research, and then also enabling the execution when it comes to, again, like your analogy from before, taking it from the 50 meters all the way to the end zone of like what actually needs to happen for this whole entire strategy to actually play out. um, you're launching a really interesting product, the revenue execution operating system. And you mentioned this just really briefly about where AI plays in. But I'm really curious because I read your quote of AI being the new kitchen, but without a good recipe, you cook bad food faster. So like where does AI actually play into go to market and scaling partnership activation in your world?
Yeah. So you had kind of two questions in there. I'll take both and sort of break them out here. So the first one, yeah, we are launching a revenue execution operating system, which is a brand new um, tool set, brand new platform. We're trying to create kind of a new category that sits between the CRM, which everybody's familiar with, Salesforce of the world, and the partner relationship management platforms, the PRM. Both of those will kind of tell you what you've done. Sales is about, hey, this is all this account information. This is our forecast. This is what we sold in the past. It's also historical data that's helping you make wiser decisions and helping you target. On the front end, the PRM is managing clients to the partner program and communication and training and deal registrations and all that kind of stuff for the partner community. What's been missing is an actual execution operating system. So what you're really looking for is a system that plans revenue down to the metric, that can tell you how many account engagements you need, in what time frames, how many active sellers you need to produce, how many partners you need to produce, how many outreaches, how many inbound. Like you need to build a strategy, a RevOps based strategy to the metric that you can then build the plan around. So I understand what the metrics are now. Now it says I need 10 partners or whatever it is, 20 partners. Who are those partners? Now we want to go in and figure out who the top partners are that based on an impact score that we should be aligning around. When it said I need 71 active sellers is what I need to produce, who should they be? Well, we should go and figure out based on the coverage model. So So the tool is built around planning, and it's planning at all levels. We plan at the theater level, the regional level, the partner revenue architect level, the territory level, and the partner level. Like it's all encompassing as far as breaking out metrics so that even the direct sales rep, where 10% of that person's quota is going through the channel, is going to be fulfilled to the channel. We want to build the metrics to say we're going to turn that into 20, and here's how we're going to do that. So, so this is what the tool initially does. So we build our planning. We build a production process in the middle. So every one of those accounts, every direct seller has whatever 100 named accounts they're tied with them. We want to have an engagement strategy associated with every one of those accounts, and we want to measure how we're progressing against that engagement, whether that's through marketing partners or direct selling. So the tool aligns all of that. We build playbooks. So the AI, and this goes back to your AI. AI is scoring all those plans and saying whether they're reasonable or whether they're not. And it's making recommendations. It's pulling data from Salesforce. It's pulling data from our platform, the PRM, and it's going through and saying, hey, when I said we need 71 active sellers, here's who we recommend based on your territory. Here are the partners we'll recommend. Here are the steps and the activities. So AI is bringing all that together under the analytics. Um, so AI is also building the playbooks. So we're pulling in the strategies that we talked about earlier, that whole sort of assessment. We're taking and we build an assessment of your solution and the partner. All that gets fed into the AI engine. The AI engine is now spitting out really comprehensive playbooks with comprehensive messaging. And the playbooks are not about the product, they're about strategy execution. So these are the steps we want to take. This is the market opportunity by both the pain point. This is the messaging to attack it based on these roles. So it's really getting into the depth of the psychology of selling and how we're out positioning. So AI kind of builds into that. We capture performance data. That data is then displayed in a RevOps dashboard with trending analysis. AI optimizes all of that data, comes back with recommendations on the trends going up and down and what we should do to execute against that. The last thing I'll share is that we have all this records data from account mappings that we've done. And we have AI that sits over the top and reads all of that data and makes recommendations at the account level that says this account, we should go in and run this sales play. We should run an expand play or upsell play. We sold this 2 years ago. We targeted this 2 years ago. Here's what we should be doing next with that account. We pull in intent data, third-party intent data to align back into that as well. So there's a lot that goes into this, but the point of this platform, to spell it out, because I went through a long process there. It's probably got everybody, overwhelmed at this point. But you want to plan revenue. You want to build a production process. You want to capture performance. If you want to execute, then capture performance intelligence. You want to AI optimize that to come back with additional opportunities. And that's essentially what this platform does. And how we're using AI.
Yeah, you summed it up nicely about kind of like a flywheel effect of planning and execution and feedback and data and using AI to continuously improve. And it's really clear that what is working for you is a level of detail that takes a lot of years to build of the nuances of these systems where you think about a lot of different variables. And again, it goes back to what I said before. I think when you're planning very, very clearly and in a lot of detail, that's when you actually can create the end-to-end solution when you've considered every step of the process, as opposed to just throwing out a prompt and not getting the result and continuously spinning your wheels. I am curious because I can observe for myself, oftentimes we don't see our own blind spot when we're working with clients or, we think strategically. It's easy to observe the limiters in others' businesses, but not always in our own. And so, as somebody who has such a detailed mind when it comes to revenue planning and execution, what would you say is your main limiter for scaling up channel force, and really what would be the main bottleneck that you think would be worth focusing on for, say, the next year?
Yeah, by the way, really great question here. So like any small company, um, there's always reach to the market issues. So that's the first limiter that I would say is our reach to the market. Um, the second is just, you know, reputation, right? You've got to prove, and create social proof. This platform is launching in August, and do I have enough social proof behind the platform? Those are going to be the things that we're going to have to kind of figure out how to work through. And then that's the last thing on our end would be SOC 2 compliance, some of the compliance things that we've got to go out and get aligned around that platform. I'm really pleased with the quality of the platform, but like anything, um, there's tuning that has to take place. We have to get more real world data from clients using it um, to kind of strengthen where it is. So you know, uh, I was actually talking to somebody earlier today. I'm really pleased with the functionality of the platform. It works just as we envisioned it to work. So that part I'm really, really pleased with. Now I want to go into the AI, and I want to make sure that we're tuning the AI so that the output is creating the outcomes that we're expecting. And so there's little things like that that we've got to do to kind of clean some things up. And I'm really going to be curious to see how people, implement and adopt this. I've got one or two test clients right now that we're kind of working through stuff with, but I think there's a huge opportunity for what we're building, whether it's ours or whether there's somebody else. There's a lot of smart people, a lot of good tech that's out there. So other people start catching on and they start adopting different pieces of what we do. But we've got something unique, and I think it's needed in the market. And whether we can execute, the thought leadership is way to the right, and the platform is way up to the right. Our ability to execute as a small company is way down to the left. So we're going to figure out, if we can make this thing work. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. And it goes back to like I learned this recently about how even the best product companies, the only reason that they actually won was because they had excellent marketing. And sometimes even if you have the best solution, but it's in a box on your computer running your system, but nobody else knows about it, you can have the best world class thinking and system and execution, but you need that word of mouth, like you said, the reach and the reputation to really be able to carry that forward and be able to, actually grow something big. Uh,
Yeah, you're spot on, and this will be the challenge for us. I think we've got good messaging. I think the marketing's coming along really nicely. But here's the bigger issue, which is deals are made in the boardroom. You're going to have executive talking to executive, and you know, a more established company. Like, let's say that somebody had to make a choice between, wanting to buy my product or buying some other module within Salesforce that does something maybe nowhere near as comprehensive or as flexible, but the chances are Salesforce is going to win that module because they know Salesforce, they're a proven entity, they've got relationships, they get a lot more value from those relationships. I think those will be the challenges that I see that you've got to overcome. But over time, as you start to grow and the reputation of the product begins to uh, develop, there's a brand associated with it that will find its own niche, and hopefully will scale fast enough that we become a really credible player with a significant following, and enough where we can have that seat at the board table as well. So that's the goal. We'll see where it goes.
yeah. Well, Craig, thank you for sharing your perspective. I mean, I'm fairly blown away just by the level of detail of your thinking as far as like getting into the details of go to market research, planning, execution, and then continuous improvement. So I'm sure that listeners can agree that they can learn a lot from this conversation. For anybody who does want to connect with you and possibly collaborate, partner with you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah. So I would first I have a website, www.channel-force.com. The new website with the tool sets coming up in another week and a half. But either one, both of those will have on online schedulers, so people can schedule meetings with me or somebody on my team at any point in time. You can reach out to me via LinkedIn. So I accept almost every outreach request. And just DM me if you want to set up a meeting or see a demo, or not even that, just have a conversation. I'm always happy to talk. So
Amazing. Thank you so much, Craig.
yeah, thank you.